Imagine stepping into a grand old cinema, its velvet curtains gleaming under the warm glow of golden lights as a hush falls over the crowd. The projector whirs to life, and there, on the flickering screen, appears the radiant figure of Greer Garson, a performer whose captivating red hair, crisp diction, and refined composure lit up Hollywood throughout the 1940s. Hers was a presence that carried both elegance and quiet strength, a perfect blend for the stories of courage and resilience that captured the public's imagination during World War II and the years that followed. But behind those graceful movements and that knowing smile lay a real human being with aspirations, hardships, and a life journey that wove together personal discoveries, well-earned triumphs, and heartbreak. This is the story of how an English child named Eileen Evelyn Greer Garson, who so often claimed Ireland as her birthplace, grew into one of Hollywood's most beloved leading ladies, garnering a remarkable string of Academy Award nominations, finding love and loss, and finally leaving the stage on her own terms. She was born on September 29, 1904, in the northeast London area known as Manor Park. Her father was from the Orkney Islands, a fact that gave her an ancestry of windswept coasts and a tradition of sturdy independence, while her mother's family had Scottish roots. Yet Greer loved to blur the lines around her origins, coyly suggesting she might be Irish and sometimes even adjusting the date of her birth. Such playful legends became part of her mystique, as though she had the power to write and rewrite her own story. Unfortunately, her father died when she was very young, just 2 years old, leaving her Scottish mother as the main force in her upbringing. When little Eileen needed a name that felt truer to her spirit, she latched onto Greer, reportedly derived from an old family surname, McGregor. From those earliest days, her life read like a tapestry stitched from multiple corners of the British Isles, enriched by a sense of heritage that would later resonate in her richly drawn portrayals. Though she claimed an adventurous persona as she grew, her early childhood health was delicate. She battled frequent bouts of bronchitis, and winter seasons confined her to bed. Books became her comfort. Week after chilly week, she devoured stories that lit her imagination on fire. Her mind found expanses of possibility while her body remained under covers, and that sense of wonder would never abandon her. As soon as she was able, she pursued an education with genuine zeal, attending King's College London and later studying in France at the Université de Grenoble, often called Grenoble University. At the time, she harbored the idea of becoming a teacher, someone who might share that passion for learning with others. She even found work at a research library for an advertising firm, a stable job she took seriously. Yet the world of ordinary life never felt entirely satisfying. Something in her yearned for more expressive adventures. That yearning led her into amateur theater circles, a decision that set her life on an unexpected new course. In the early 1930s, she joined the prestigious Birmingham Repertory Company, where aspiring actors learned how to wrap their voices around challenging roles, memorize scripts at breakneck speed, and project confidence no matter the size of the stage. It was at Birmingham in 1931 that Greer first realized acting could shift from a hobby to a profession. The next year, in 1932, she officially made her professional stage debut in a piece called Street Scene. Bit by bit, she moved through smaller roles, carefully sharpening her presence and building a reputation as someone to watch. She took on George Bernard Shaw's play, Too True to Be Good, a production that tested her comedic and dramatic skills alike. During these early forays, she began to be credited simply as Greer, a name that felt distinctive and unforgettable. It was also in those years that she graced the stage at the Regent's Park Open Air Theater in a production of Shakespeare's The Tempest, immersing herself in the bard's language beneath the open sky of a London summer. By 1935, she was forging connections with some of Britain's biggest stage talents. She found herself working alongside Laurence Olivier on a production called Golden Arrow. Though she hadn't yet taken the West End by storm, producers and audiences were starting to realize that here was a performer of uncommon poise. So unstoppable was her focus, so natural her charm, that her slow but steady rise caught the eye of influential figures in the entertainment world. In May of 1937, she achieved a truly pioneering moment by becoming one of the very first actors to appear on live television. She performed an excerpt from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, beaming into the handful of households that even had televisions at the time. This was remarkable territory, exploring a still untested medium. It gave her the edge of novelty, showing that she was unafraid to embrace new technology and new ways to reach an audience. Later that year, she appeared in a play called Old Music. Among those who saw her was Louis B. Mayer, the formidable head of MGM, who had traveled to London. He reportedly took one look at this vibrant actress and was convinced she was a star waiting to be unveiled to the world. In a flash, she found herself bound for Hollywood under a 7-year contract that promised a real shot at stardom. For anyone in the 1930s, especially an actor from across the pond, being signed by MGM was like scaling the summit of possibility. It offered new prospects, new resources, and a chance to step in front of a camera on sets that ranged from lavish period dramas to high-stakes romances. But success in that system demanded more than a pretty face or a nice voice. It demanded the ability to adapt. Hollywood at the time was a grand machine that expected its players to perform, on cue, in roles that might range from elegant aristocrats to suffering heroines. Greer packed her trunks and set sail, full of hope, curiosity, and that calm determination that would become her hallmark. Her arrival in Tinseltown led first to an audition for Goodbye, Mr. Chips, 1939, a heartfelt film about an aging schoolteacher named Mr. In that story, her character, Catherine Chipping, breathed romance and compassion into a life spent in quiet service. She was not the star in terms of screen time. Actor Robert Donat, playing Mr. Chips, carried the emotional weight, but Greer's warmth shone through in every moment she had. She seemed to bring something unique to the role, a soft voice that could convey empathy and spirit all in a single line, a posture of open-heartedness that won over viewers. The film earned critical applause, giving her a respectable Hollywood debut. She was set next to test her comedic wit and period charm as Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, 1940, again acting opposite Laurence Olivier, who played Mr. Darcy with a certain brooding dignity. Though the film took some liberties with Jane Austen's novel, audiences were delighted by its witty banter and the chemistry between the leads. Hollywood soon realized that in Greer, Garson had found an actress who excelled at depicting smart, empathetic women. When 1941 rolled around, she shared the screen with Joan Crawford in When Ladies Meet. Yet it was another project that year, Blossoms in the Dust, that dramatically changed her standing in the industry. Playing Edna Gladney, a real-life figure who advocated for orphans and led important reforms, Garson displayed a depth of conviction and heartfelt emotion that resonated strongly with audiences. Critics took notice, awarding her a second Academy Award nomination, the first being for Goodbye, Mr. Chips. All at once, she was no longer just a pleasant new face. She was a leading lady with Oscar prestige attached to her name. Everything, however, hinged on the following year, 1942. and the film that would define her legacy, Mrs. Miniver. In that wartime drama directed by William Wyler, she portrayed the eponymous Kay Miniver, a gracious wife and mother in an English village facing the hardships of World War II. The role required tenderness, resolve, and a subtle brand of heroism. Garson delivered all of that and more, forging a portrayal that captured the entire spirit of a nation trying to rally in the face of danger. Her performance was so powerful that it earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress and cemented the film as a cultural touchstone. Mrs. Miniver also brought in massive box office returns. It was rumored that at first Greer hesitated to portray a character a few years older than she was in real life. She was 33, playing a woman closer to 40. But Louis B. Mayer intervened. With a showman's flair, he read portions of the script aloud to her, appealing to her sense of duty. He played on the stirrings of patriotism that were so prominent in that era. Persuaded by his passion, she embraced the role wholeheartedly, and the rest became cinematic history. Mrs. Miniver itself garnered 12 Oscar nominations and took several wins, including Best Picture and Best Director. It was more than a mere film. It became a morale-boosting phenomenon. Greer's acceptance speech at the Oscars was famously lengthy, though tales of it lasting over 5 minutes might have been exaggerated by the press. Nonetheless, the moment sealed her stardom. She would, in fact, build on that success by continuing a run of Academy Award nominations, scoring 5 consecutive Best Actress nods from 1941 through 1945, a record matched only by Bette Davis at that time. In 1943, she played the wife of a scientist in Madame Curie, bringing a gentle fortitude to the part that again earned an Oscar nomination. The next year, she tackled Mrs. Parkington and once again found herself on the short list for the trophy. By 1945, the Valley of Decision gave her that 5th consecutive nomination, tying Davis's remarkable record. The high regard in which the industry held her was clear. Garson had evolved into Hollywood's definition of a distinguished, refined leading lady, combining brains, warmth, and an aura of nobility. Yet the public's tastes were always evolving, and box office success could be fickle. After that dizzying streak of achievements, Greer hit a snag with a couple of films that didn't perform as well, but she was hardly finished. In 1948, she teamed up again with Walter Pidgeon, her frequent and much admired screen partner, in the romantic comedy Julia Misbehaves. In that movie, she had a chance to show a lighter, more playful side, a departure from the solemn responsibilities of war dramas and biographies. Audiences responded well, and the film garnered a favorable reception, rejuvenating her standing in the industry. In 1949, she starred in That Forsyte Woman, a film adaptation of John Galsworthy's The Forsyte Saga. Surrounded by a talented cast, Walter Pidgeon again, Errol Flynn, and Robert Young, she played the charismatic Irene Forsyte, a woman at the center of a romantic tangle. The production carried a sense of prestige and allowed her to demonstrate that mix of dignified composure and emotional depth. Not every critic adored the film, but it was another reminder that Greer Garson could preside over stories brimming with dramatic nuance. Fans still flocked to see her. It was about that time, however, that the unstoppable wave of new cinematic styles began to shift. The post-war landscape demanded different stories, grittier approaches, or glossier musicals, while her signature brand of quiet strength sometimes felt out of step with the era. By the early 1950s, tastes were changing more noticeably. Garson tried to revisit the spirit of Mrs. Miniver with a film called The Miniver Story in 1950, hoping to recapture the essence that had enthralled audiences a decade earlier. Unfortunately, the public had moved on, and the attempt fell short. Her contract with MGM ended in 1954. She was no longer the powerful box office queen, though her name still evoked warmth and respect. Nevertheless, Greer remained a performer at heart. She found her way back to the stage in 1957, stirring excitement when she accepted the lead role in Auntie Mame, a Broadway part that combined comedic timing with an air of sophistication. Critics were enthusiastic, praising her versatility and ability to command a live crowd. Then came a film in 1960 that surprised many, Sunrise at Campobello. In it, she portrayed Eleanor Roosevelt, stepping far outside her usual style to inhabit a political figure known for a rather plain physicality and a quivering, distinct vocal tone. With careful makeup and some pitch adjustments to her voice, Greer created a transformation so complete that critics reeled at her skill. She received her 7th Oscar nomination for that performance, an astonishing total for any actor, let alone someone who'd already spent years at the top. Sunrise at Campobello proved she still had plenty to offer Hollywood. Though the 1960s wouldn't be a golden decade for her film career, that particular triumph reminded the industry of her range. The last 2 films she made were The Singing Nun, 1966, in which she portrayed a mother prioress, and The Happiest Millionaire, 1967, a Disney family musical co-starring Fred MacMurray. Neither role had the impact of her earlier hits, but they showed her willingness to adapt, to try new terrain, and to keep her foot in the door. After that, she only rarely appeared on the big screen. Instead, she turned her talents toward occasional television work, one highlight being her narration of the children's Christmas program, The Little Drummer Boy. For countless families, that narration became part of their holiday tradition, further cementing her image as a gentle, reassuring presence. She was married 3 times, each marriage revealing a different aspect of who she was. In 1933, she married Edward Snelson, a childhood friend, but their union crumbled under the pressures of jealousy and possessiveness. Their divorce was finalized by 1943. That same year, she married actor Richard Ney, who had ironically portrayed her son in Mrs. Miniver. Though the public was captivated by this real-life twist, the relationship faced troubles from the outset, particularly due to Ney's resentment of his wife's immense success. He also reportedly chafed at the arrangement of living with her mother. By September 1946, they were divorced. It wasn't until 1949 that she found what appeared to be true happiness with E. Buddy Fogelson, a Texan oil magnate who embraced her lifestyle and ambitions. They eventually retired to a ranch in New Mexico, where they bred racehorses and contributed greatly to philanthropic causes. They split their time between New Mexico and Dallas, immersing themselves in a quieter, more contemplative life that allowed Greer to devote herself to charity work. During that period, the couple proved generous benefactors to various institutions, including the College of Santa Fe in New Mexico, which honored them by naming a theater after Greer Garson in 1965. The E. Fogelson Library soon followed, also on that campus, testifying to the couple's influence and generosity. Both structures underscored the wide-reaching impact of their philanthropy, from the arts to education. In 1975, Greer gave her final stage performance at the very theater that bore her name, starring in The Mad Woman of Chaillot, though the original text source refers to it as Choux, presumably meaning Chaillot. She may have been stepping away from the daily demands of performing, but she never fully left behind the magic that had guided her through decades of success. In the 1970s and 1980s, her rare appearances on television, such as a turn as Aunt March in a miniseries adaptation of Little Women, reminded fans that her serene elegance was still alive and well. She also made guest appearances on The Love Boat, bridging the gap between the golden age of Hollywood and a new era of glossy, campy television. Over time, however, her personal responsibilities deepened. In 1982, Buddy Fogelson was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. She stood by him faithfully as he faced a gradual decline. For years, she tended to him, balancing the demands of estate management with daily care. When he passed away on December 1st, 1987 in Dallas, her grief was profound. Meanwhile, she herself had faced health issues, suffering a stroke in 1980. Though life had slowed her down physically, she retained that steady dignity. With Buddy gone, Greer took on the task of administering his estate. She used that position to ensure that their shared philanthropic vision continued, directing funds to charitable organizations and educational institutions, including the College of Santa Fe and Southern Methodist University in Dallas. She believed that success was incomplete without a commitment to giving back. Her ability to remain active in this way reflected a quiet resilience that mirrored her greatest roles. By 1992, her health had worsened, plagued by heart problems. She moved into a suite at Dallas Presbyterian Hospital, where she was surrounded by a small circle of people who cherished her. Despite the difficulties of her condition, she found comfort in those who visited as well as in the memories of a life that had been richly fulfilling, laced with awards, applause, philanthropic successes, and personal loves that mattered more than any movie contract. In the end, death came for her gently on April 6, 1996. She was 91 years old. The cause was heart failure, and her final resting place lies in the Sparkman Hillcrest Memorial Park Cemetery in Dallas, marking the close of a storied journey that began across the Atlantic, ended in the American Southwest, and encompassed stops everywhere from film sets in Southern California to philanthropic events in Texas, from glamorous nights at the Oscars to the hush of a New Mexico ranch. Greer Garson's life and career remain a shining example of talent, perseverance, and sophistication. From her legendary roles on the silver screen to her dedication to philanthropy, she left an indelible mark on Hollywood and beyond. Though she is no longer with us, her legacy continues to inspire generations of fans and artists. If you enjoyed this tribute to Greer Garson, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about the stars who shaped the golden age of cinema. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.